Episode 69 of the Habs Culture Podcast. My name is Justin Schwartz, and per usual, I'm along my sidekick, Liam Baum. And the Montreal Canadiens have won their last game, which has not been something that we've been seeing very often as of late. Since the last time we spoke, they've gone 1-5-0, and that one win came just last night on a Wednesday night, Wednesday the 22nd of November, where they beat the Anaheim Ducks with a score of 4-3 in regulation, with 2 goals from Alex Newhook, who looked pretty good, and I'm sure we'll get to that a little bit later in this episode. But despite that win, and despite maybe a change of pace, now going on this California road trip, the 1-5 record in those last 6, has led them to 6th in the Atlantic Division, 23rd in the league, and a record of 8-9-2 on the season. Now, they did add 1 win to their regular season win total with 3 now, so that's an improvement. But all in all, like we talked about last episode, things haven't really improved. And when you're going through a rebuild, you kind of want to see a little bit of improvement year after year. But unfortunately, the start the Montreal Canadiens have had this year has not significantly improved from the start they had last year. Liam, what are your thoughts on that? Where is this team going, and what's their direction? And is this a cause for concern 20 odd games into the season?
I'll put this in simple terms. I'm concerned. I saw a tweet the other day. It compared the Canadiens last season first, I think it was 16 games at the time that I saw it. And our start last year was better than our start this year, surprisingly. So, yeah, cause of concern. I think we talked about it last podcast or 2 podcasts ago that the next stretch of games would kind of decide where we're going to end up. I mean, you can't really decide where we're going to end up this early in the season, but it kind of shows you what steps we're taking, and we're going down the stairs here. We're headed to the bottom. So, cause of concern, 100%. Some players haven't been showing up. We'll get into that.
And I want to go more into the specifics of it, right? Because as a tanking team, and a team that's probably going to end up finishing bottom 5 in this league once again for the 3rd season in a row, obviously, like I mentioned before, you want to see some sort of improvement. But I think the exclamation mark here needs to be put on individual play. And individual players, young players, guys that you want to be a big part of your future, you want those guys to start performing at a little bit of a better rate. Now, we talked briefly about Newhook so far in his performance last night in Anaheim. Guys like Cole Caufield and Nick Suzuki, their performances as of late have been okay. Slavkovsky's been a little bit better. The decor has been so-so, obviously headlined by Cayden Primeau, but nonetheless, nothing to write home about. Are the core guys that you want to see make improvements, the core young guys on this team make improvements, doing it for you so far?
I mean, at the start of the season, Nick Suzuki wasn't playing great and Caufield was, and now I think it's quite the opposite. Last episode, I believe it was me. I predicted Caufield would score 4 goals in the next 4 games. The guy's sitting on a donut in the last 6. Also struggling mightily 5-on-5 with 1 goal this season, 5-on-5. But other than him, Nick Suzuki has been playing pretty well with 5 points in his last 6. And Slavkovsky has been playing a little bit better as well. And it shows on the ice. So, some guys are there, some guys aren't. You're going to go through rough patches, but it's like a half-half right now. What do you think?
No, I think I'm on the same page there. And unfortunately, I'm not going to hit the panic button just yet because there's no need for that. But I think Caufield's play as of late has been quite concerning. You're looking at a guy that obviously is coming off of shoulder surgery. Obviously, that might be affecting his play to date. But I think it might be a confidence thing. I think it might be a scare to re-injure. Whatever the case may be, we're looking at a guy that has 5 goals on the season and 1 even strength goal this season. So those other 4 goals came in the overtime periods, which obviously as fans, we'd love to see because he was the guy putting the game away in 3-on-3 open ice. But you also want your goal scorer and your the guy that you want to bank on to maybe score 50 one day to be producing at 5-on-5. And I think that begs the question, Liam, and I'm going to ask you this right off the bat, and I don't mean to, maybe harp on him too much, but is he a future first line winger on a Stanley Cup winning team?
Again, that's a really tough question to answer. Personally, I think he is a first line center because he has that natural goal scoring ability. And, we could talk about this for hours, but at the end of the day, Caufield has shown that he can score goals and be a big time player in the league. So I'm going to say yes, although it's not showing right now. I think he is. And I think there's the right pieces around him with Suzuki, and Newhook's looked very good in the past few games. So, we're building that culture. Obviously, it's not there yet, but it's going to build, and we're going to take the steps in the right direction, and it'll come. Obviously, today is not that day.
Yeah, that's fair. And speaking of line jumbling, we'll run through a little bit of news up to date. Jack-Eye is considered day-to-day for the moment, so that kind of sucks because I think we can both agree that his game has improved mightily since he's joined the team. Raphael Harvey-Pinard, who was kind of considered day-to-day, is now going to miss an extended period of time, and both players did not make the trip for the California trip, which included the game last night against Anaheim and the 2 games coming up for San Jose and the LA Kings. Now, Jordan Harris is going to be out indefinitely, so that kind of sucks for that young core. 2 of the 3 younger defensemen on this team are not going to be playing, significant minutes for this Montreal Canadiens team in the foreseeable future. But this has obviously sparked the conversation. Well, who's the next man up? Who's the next guy that needs to make that jump? And a lot of people were obviously speculating for Logan Mailloux. Obviously, they already brought up Gustav Lindstrom, who's not younger, but he's a guy, a depth defenseman that they were going to rely on for some solid minutes there. But the Montreal Canadiens decided to go a different route and call up Jayden Struble. And I'm not going to lie to you, at first I was a little bit surprised considering the way that Logan Mailloux's played up to date. But Struble came in here last night against Anaheim playing his first NHL game. And to me, he kind of impressed, Liam. I don't know if you caught that game at all, but he did look good and confident and, a very agile skater with good decision-making and didn't look too nervous in his first game. What were your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I was able to catch some glances of him and see some highlights of his shifts. And, we'll make it known right away. Struble is not going to be an offensive guy. He's never been the offensive player. He's not flashy. This guy is a shutdown D-man. And, in the AHL, he actually put up half a point per game. I believe he had 6 points in 12 games. But he's very, very strong defensively. And it looked really good last night. And, he's wearing number 47, worn by Montreal legend Alex Radulov. So, stepping up to the plate here.
Yeah, no doubt about that. 11 minutes and 20 seconds last night. So obviously in a little bit more of a sheltered role. You can't particularly, if people were expecting him to come up and put on a show, you were probably mistaken. He's there for security purposes. He's there to fill some shoes for the moment. And we'll see what he can do during his tenure with the Canadiens, because maybe if he impresses enough, he could be, he can become part of that rotation with those younger guys. So that was nice to see. I think it begs the question also, the fact that Harris is out indefinitely. Maybe Mailloux gets the call up at some point or another. That's a question of if they want to, have him jump over Gustav Lindstrom. But for the foreseeable future, I don't see it being the case, just because they want a guy there that's going to be able to just log some heavier minutes and not necessarily have to, affect the development of one of the younger guys who's playing pretty well in the AHL as of right now. So Liam, 1-5-0 in their last 6. Correct me if I'm wrong. It's obviously not looking great. Like we mentioned before, 23rd in the NHL. I'm going to ask you this right now, and I think we can both agree: is this Montreal Canadiens team going to finish above? We'll call it a cutoff. Are they going to be bottom 7? So are they going to be 25th or worse, or are they going to string some wins together and get over that hump?
Looking at the standings right now, there's actually a lot of strong teams in the NHL, but the bad teams are pretty bad. So I think the only teams who are worse than the Canadiens right now would be probably Chicago and Chicago, San Jose, and Columbus. So that definitely puts them in the bottom 5. And just based off the stats, we're sitting at the bottom of the league as well. In the past few games, we've been 1 for 14 on the power play. Just going back to our old ways, our goal differential is -7. Our key guys aren't producing, and at the same time, it's just hasn't been good. It really just hasn't been good statistically.
There's some teams in this bottom tier, whether it's Edmonton, which we'll get to in terms of goalie talks, because that obviously sparks an interesting conversation for the Montreal Canadiens 3 goalie rotation. I'm surprised to see Minnesota there, despite them being, they're obviously not a great team, but bottom 6 right now, or bottom 5, excuse me, is pretty low. And the Senators being there as well is also pretty interesting. And New Jersey, who obviously lost Jack Hughes for a moment, but I feel like they just collapsed without his presence. So that's interesting, and obviously something to monitor. But obviously we can speculate that those teams will probably jump the Habs at some point or another once they get into their midseason form. But kind of like you mentioned, I think the scariest thing for me, Liam, and I want to know what people think, watching games, listening at home, is that I find the Montreal Canadiens are having a really tough time making adjustments when necessary. And maybe that goes back to MSL, maybe that goes back to the assistant coaches, or maybe that goes back to the GM. And it's not necessarily trying to find the root of the problem. But what I'm scared of is that the Canadiens team was having a decent season so far in terms of their power play percentage. They were hovering around 20% through 20 games, which is really not, it's basically middle of the pack. But in the last 5 games, they've gone 1 for 14. And now in their last 5, they've gone 7.1% on the power play. And we've talked about this at length, and I don't want to go into it too much. We know that Josh Anderson does not deserve to be on that power play 1 spot. But the guy I want to talk about is, why is Justin Barron quarterbacking that second power play unit and clearly not doing much of anything when you have another young skater, another young defenseman in Cayden Primeau, who's putting up some pretty nice offensive numbers at 5-on-5 with not an ounce of power play time? Do you think that they should make the move from Primeau to Barron on that second power play unit?
I think the only reason why Barron is there is because Goalie already plays like 26 minutes a night. That's literally the only reason I could think of. But yes, in terms of an offensive production standpoint, I'd love to see Goalie. He always put up points in the WHL. Obviously, he's not that pure offensive defenseman. He's not that PP1 player, but he can definitely create some offensive chances. And I think he's more developed offensively right now than Justin Barron is. But, also going back again to Josh Anderson, fun fact, he's the only guy in the NHL on power play 1 that doesn't have a goal, including all defensemen. So I think that speaks for itself that guy needs the boot onto PP2 or maybe PP3.
Yeah. And guys, now we're just going to take a second here to just shout out our sponsors at DraftKings. The NFL season is going strong, and DraftKings Sportsbook is hooking up new customers up with an offer that's even stronger. Bet $5 on any game this week to score $200 instantly in bonus bets. And DraftKings isn't stopping there. All customers can take advantage of a sweetener offer every game day this November. Get in on the game day greatness. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use codes THPN. New customers can score $200 instantly in bonus bets when you bet $5 on the NFL. That's code THPN only on DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.1800gambler.net. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. So Liam, obviously this is kind of a disaster. And I don't want to put any blame on Martin St. Louis because he's still a coach in this league that's still learning what he has in front of him, right? He needs to realize that this is a rebuilding team that's going in a certain direction. And obviously, they're trying to build game after game, season after season. But obviously, sometimes there's going to be some bumps in the road, whether it's a dock injury or other injuries for that matter, that are going to take a toll on the, the output or the success of this team. But so far, and maybe this might be a broad question, but is there a specific style that Martin St. Louis has showed that he wants this Canadiens team to play? And if so, is it the right style for who he has in front of him, the players that he has in front of him?
I think St. Louis likes to adopt the style that he used to play. I could be fully wrong about this, but the Canadiens love to play offensively and kind of I guess they struggle everywhere, but I think it's more of an offensive push than, let's say, Barry Trotz, who played a very defensive style, which I personally like a lot. And I think St. Louis styles are good. I think he is a good coach, although there's a lot of debate about that. But I appreciate the way he coaches our players, and I think he's opened up a lot of the potential that some players have, like Caufield, as we've seen, and I think Slavkovsky is showing those colors as well.
And I think kind of just to piggyback off what you said, I think St. Louis puts a lot of emphasis on forechecking, and you have a lot of guys that have mastered that art, whether it's Gallagher or whether it's Jake Evans. Both those guys are good at getting in on the forecheck and retrieving the puck. Other guys like Anderson, who obviously pretty much gets to the puck first every time, but is not capitalizing on the opportunities that he's creating for himself. Obviously, 0 goals through 20 games or 19 games, whatever it is. Obviously, a cause for concern from a guy that you're paying a pretty lucrative contract. But nonetheless, I think that the style that Martin St. Louis wants to play might not cater to everyone on his team. And obviously that's going to come with time. And I think that they're going to figure that out sooner rather than later, how to play as a unit, how to play as one. But I think, unfortunately, the Doc loss is really going to take a toll on that, because he is an integral part of this team going forward. And that's what we ultimately want to see.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you wanted to chime in there, go ahead.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think that's a huge part. There was a comment we got on TikTok. If you want to follow us and see some of the things we've been posting at Habs Culture, one of the viewers wanted to see us go through the new lines and kind of give our opinion. So you want to go one for one about these lines that we have, the new lines coming into this week?
Yeah, go. You could start it off if you'd like.
Yeah. All right. So our new line one right now is Newhook, Suzuki, and Brendan Gallagher. I'd say last game they actually looked pretty good. I like how Newhook and Suzuki complement each other, and Gallagher's there as well. Like, he's forechecking hard, obviously, as you said. And I don't want to I'm obviously going to keep it a little bit basic because I can't see every play that happens. But I think that's a very good complementary line. And going on to the second line, I'm glad that Caufield's getting that time with Dvorak and Suzuki, because I honestly think they've looked pretty good as well, although the goals aren't coming.
Yeah, and what's interesting to me, Liam, is that I think what we saw last game from that first line is that they were heavily depended on by Martin St. Louis. And I think that's because Gallagher brings a dimension to that line that, they don't really get to see too often, because usually that right spot is either occupied by a guy like Josh Anderson or Cole Caufield, who I won't say are defensive liabilities, but are obviously not as strong in that department. So when you add a guy like Gallagher, who's willing to get into those nitty gritty spaces and, really battle hard on the boards, now you're adding a very nice complement to a guy like Suzuki and a guy like Alex Newhook, who obviously Alex Newhook has thrived playing on the wing versus playing at center. His time at center between Slavkovsky and Anderson, let's just say it how it is, was absolutely atrocious. It was terrible. We should never see that line combination ever again. But with that being said, obviously we're finding a little bit of a groove there. I know it's been one game and you mentioned that as well, but I think Gallagher being there, especially in a season where it seems like he's got his legs back a little bit, right? He struggled the last 2 seasons with injuries and kind of, the pace of play in the NHL. But I think that this season so far, he's looked pretty solid. And for that second line, I mean, I agree with you with the Caufield comment, but I'm slowly, I know we talked about this maybe an episode or 2 ago, but I'm kind of slowly giving up on Dvorak. I think that, yes, he brings a dimension to that line, maybe slows down the game a little bit, if you will. But he just hasn't, to me, he hasn't really been present mentally and physically on the ice. Like, I find he's floating a lot. I find that there's not much engagement in the play. I find that there's no will to battle and get to the dirty areas. And the thing is that when you're between a young player like Slafkovsky, who clearly benefits from good line mates, and Caufield, who benefits from a good playmaker, I just don't think that Dvorak is doing that for them right now. What do you think about that?
I'll agree with you there. I think Dvorak is still a good player, but yeah, he doesn't have that same playmaking ability as Suzuki. So would you rather see, I'll just throw it out on a limb, but would you rather see Jake Evans there maybe? He did make that pass to Newhook.
Very nice pass. I mean, look, I think that, wouldn't say pushing it. I think that Evans is obviously, I think he's kind of like one of those players that every team has, where you can kind of just throw him on any line and he'll make it work. Like, he's just an all-around solid hockey player. But for me, I think the biggest thing, Liam, is that what I would like to see is Monahan there. And I know that might not be a popular opinion, but I don't think we've seen Monahan with Slafkovsky and Caufield at the same time so far. And Monahan has had a solid start to the season. Granted, he's been playing a lot of power play minutes, and he's been an integral part of, the success that they've had up to date on the power play, where they sit at about 19%, give or take. But what can Dvorak do that Monahan can't, is what I'm asking. I think that Monahan has showed that he's, found his form a little bit, and his offensive style might complement these two younger players pretty well.
Yeah. No, I agree with you there. I was going to also say or Monahan. I just want to be a little original. But
right.
Yeah, Monahan's struggled like as of late. So yeah, I think a change is needed, even though at the same time I don't like, we talked about this again, but I don't like when the lines are changing every game. So, I kind of like the fact that St. Louis is adjusting to these injuries and keeping similar lines, even though it's very tough with guys coming in and out of the lineup every day. But yes, I definitely would like to see a different combination, even though I kind of like it. But it'd be interesting to see Monahan play with some higher skilled players. Needless to say.
And just to go down the rest of the line combinations here, we have Monahan with Tanner Pearson on the left and Josh Anderson on the right. And then you have Jake Evans down the middle with Pezzetta on the left and Ylonen on the right. So obviously, like you said, it's a massive line jumble here that's going on. I mean, clearly the Canadiens have not found the chemistry that they need or that they want, and they don't have it at the level that they want right now. So they're trying some new things out. Look, let's go back to last game for a second. In that game, I'm just pulling it up here. In that game, Monahan played a total of, sorry, I've lost the game. Here we go. Monahan played a total of 20 minutes. So obviously he gets some power play opportunities as well. Josh Anderson's utility has kind of has moved down a bit. I think that Martin St. Louis has listened to, the opinions of Habs, the Habs Nation, if you will, Habs fans, and he got 16 minutes and 18 seconds last game. Newhook had his minutes jump to 19 minutes, which is good for third on the team and second in terms of forwards, third in terms of forwards, which is really nice to see, because you want to see your younger guys get some utility. But I'm concerned about the use of Juraj Slafkovsky. And I know we've just been going at it with this topic for weeks now. But yeah. 14 minutes and 30 seconds, like, for your first overall pick, playing with Caufield, playing with Dvorak, like, we want to. If he's going to be up on this team instead of the AHL, you got to be thinking at least 16 minutes a game, right?
100%. And I saw something today. Arpon Basu tweeted he hosted a Q&A last night, and I got to listen in for a couple minutes, and there was one thing that he said. and that was that Yuri Slavkovsky has no interest apparently in playing in the World Juniors, which to me is a little bit disappointing because I feel like he needs to, like we've said again, he needs to gain that confidence back. It just isn't really there right now, and he needs to experience dominating a league and being the best player on his team and playing those important minutes. Having the ability to just have the puck on his stick and off shot on the net right away. So it is a little bit disappointing how he's being utilized right now. Again, I'm vouching for him to go down to the minors because I think Laval could use him and he could use some different scenery just in terms of, the pace of the game and how he can control his play. So, a change does need to be made. We've said it so many times. And again, what's the point of playing when your team is clearly one of the worst in the league? What's the point of playing your top guys if, it's just going to stagnate his development?
Yeah, I think look, we're like we can almost like stay off this topic because like it doesn't seem like anything's going to change. And if we want to even go back on the last few games, right? Like you can look at the game against Boston and obviously an absolute horrible game. Like the Canadiens did not look like a team and they were just getting outmatched every line, every play, every period. It was brutal. Slavkovsky was probably the highlight of the game, garnering a goal and an assist. The goal was pretty nice. The secondary assist was solid. So obviously you like to see him start putting up a little bit more points. But at the end of the day, as much as you like to see him putting up points, if you're not going to keep him in a consistent role and you're going to keep fluctuating his lines and his line mates and his time on ice and his power play usage, when are we going to tell ourselves, send him down to Laval, play on the first line, first power play, solid line mates? And I'm looking at the standings right now for the AHL, and I'm just looking at where Laval is. Laval is dead last in the North Division, at 5-9-2. They have 56 games remaining. They've had 16 games they played 16 games. They're clearly struggling, and they're a young team. Granted, they're a young team, but how much would a team like Laval benefit from a first overall pick joining their squad and probably, or not probably, you know what you're getting in that type of player on an AHL level team?
Exactly. I'll always vouch for the young players going back to develop a little longer because how often do you see a guy just come into the league and tear it up? Not including this season because there's like 4 guys tearing it up. But, it's very rare nowadays that a player who's 18, 19 years old is just going to come in and start being a point per game player. I just would love to see him develop. So take this as an example. Philip Messar wanted to play in the AHL this season. He was not going to be utilized at all. So Montreal sent him back to the OHL. And right now he is averaging over 2 points per game, coming off a 4-point game last night or 2 nights ago where he scored a hat trick and had an assist. So, it would just be amazing if Slavkovsky can go back, or not go back, but go down to the AHL and have that same dominance that, Philip Messar is experiencing. I'm sure Slavkovsky is hearing about it and wishing he could be, in that dominant role too.
No doubt about that. And it surprises me that you say, or not that you say, but that you heard that Slavkovsky has no interest in playing in the World Juniors. And look, maybe he's adapted to the culture here in Montreal, and maybe he's adapted to a lifestyle, and that maybe he loves the guys on the team. It's a relatively young team, so it would make sense. But
I think it's about him wanting to be past that, so to say. He played in the Olympics with grown men and dominated, so I feel like he thinks he's above it. Not in a negative way, but I think he's just past playing against junior guys. I think that's his mentality. But then again, you're still 19, and it's not like you're dominating the NHL, so I don't see the harm in going.
And don't get me wrong, these players are obviously in a completely different tier than Slavkovsky, but then you have the three first picks of last year's draft, Connor Bedard, Adam Fantilli, and Leo Carlsson, all putting up very respectable numbers in this league. And if what you're saying is true, I'm not saying that you're quoting that or you're saying that that's what he thinks necessarily. But if we're making that assumption, then at the end of the day, he should realize, like, look, like I'm right now, I'm I'm far from even the best player in my draft class right now. And I should like and you know what the truth is that obviously a player of his caliber, a player with that much potential is going to want to stay up with the big guys. But this is where Kent Hughes and Jeff Gordon need to make a decision, and they need to say to themselves, are we really going to just force this narrative that he's good enough to be here? Because maybe he's good enough to be here, but you don't want just good enough. You want him to produce. You want him to be great. That your goal is not for him to just be good enough.
Yeah, or at the very least, showed some development and some progress, which I don't think we've seen yet. I don't know about you, but I don't think I've seen that yet.
I haven't seen it enough. And look, I will give him the benefit of the doubt. I think his confidence, you see it in spurts. I think that you see it in his decision making now. I think that he's become a little bit more. I think he's become more comfortable with the NHL speed, which is obviously something you love to see. But it doesn't change the fact that the development is going to take a lot longer by sheltering him in the NHL versus giving him a year or two in the AHL or a year. To me, that suffices. Suffices. Give him a year in the NHL, AHL, 56 games remaining. Let him go play that out. Let him be over point per game there, hopefully. And then bringing him up next year when this team has Doc back, another first-round pick, probably a top 5, top 10 pick. And now this team is starting to gel and form. And then some of those guys, whether it's Struble, Roy, Mayu, those guys might make the jump too. This team could be so much better next year if they do this right. They do this right.
I agree. And I think that's the whole point of the rebuild, and that's just to do it right. So, I mean, obviously getting goals is difficult, but it's never been more difficult for Josh Anderson, who's approaching game 20 with 0 goals. I don't know, your opinion. Well, we've got into Josh Anderson a little bit, but what's the plan with Josh Anderson? He was on the ice at about 12 o'clock Pacific time, ripping pucks alone. Do you think it's going to come? Do you think the goal's coming against the worst team in the NHL?
He's going to score. He's going to score at some point. Obviously, he deserves a goal. But then again, I think that, like I said before, this team needs to realize, or he needs to realize what his position is on this team. We can't just, keep giving him. I know he only played 16 minutes last game, but he's not a player. He's not a player that's going to play 20 minutes in power play 1, or he shouldn't be at least. Should be a guy that's going to play 14 to 16 minutes a game, power play 2, good in the neutral zone, good when you need a change of pace. But to me, that's about it. And you know what? Yeah. Unfortunately for the contract they gave him, it sucks that that's the player he's going to be or is. But sometimes you just have to bite the bullet.
Yeah, I agree. All right, so we'll get into our next ad here from Raycon. It may be too early to start decorating for the holidays, but it's never too early to start your holiday shopping. Why not take care of it now, before the crowds and packed calendars make shopping a total nightmare, especially when you can get some of the best deals of the season well before Black Friday. You can shop Raycon products right now and save up to 50% off because their early Black Friday sale is going on now. Raycon first made a name for themselves in the audio space with products like their everyday earbuds, known for delivering high quality and thoughtful features, like a 32-hour battery life and a perfect in-ear fit for all-day wear and lasting comfort. And this past year, they expanded their entire business with the introduction of Raycon Home and Raycon Power Tech. Their 5-star reviewed Magic 180 cable allows you to charge iOS, micro USB, and Type-C devices 8 times faster with 100-watt power delivery. Their faucet filter ultra filters the water in your tap against chlorine and heavy metals. It's a must-have for ensuring the water you use to wash your face and brush your teeth is, actually clean. Raycon is known for delivering high quality and thoughtful features at half the price of other premium tech brands. It's no wonder their products have racked up tens of thousands of 5-star reviews. To get everyone in the holiday shopping spirit a bit early, Raycon is currently offering 20% off everything on their site with select products up to 50% off. So beat the crowds and save now. Trust me, you do not want to miss out on Raycon's early Black Friday sale. Hurry now to buyraycon.com/THPN to get 20 to 50% off site-wide. That's buyraycon.com/THPN to score up to 50% off Raycon products. Buyraycon.com/THPN. Now back to the show.
And so Liam, so let's now talk about this situation for a second. We'll kind of jump teams. We'll talk about it briefly. Let's look at the Edmonton Oilers. The Edmonton Oilers are struggling beyond belief. Like it probably doesn't get much worse than this right now for a team that's led by McDavid and Draisaitl. They sit at third to last in the league, 5-12-1, with a minus 19 goal differential. Now San Jose has a minus 55. I don't even know how that's possible.
Yeah.
I don't even know what I'm looking at. But Edmonton's at minus 19 for a team that went to the Western Conference Final last year. Correct me if I'm wrong.
No, so they got eliminated in the second round.
Right. So 2 seasons ago, Western Conference Final. Last year, second round elimination. This year, Ken Holland comes out and says it's cup or bust for this team. This team has a lot of work to do to get back to a playoff spot. Nonetheless, a cup contender. Liam, the Montreal Canadiens have 3 goalies on their roster. Cayden Primeau, Jake Allen, and Samuel Montembeault. We'll keep it simple. If they call, and the Edmonton Oilers call and say, and look, this seems to be a hesitance from Ken Holland from the jump because he's never really traded for a goalie. He's always been hesitant to do so, and I think that's what makes him a bad GM. He's not willing to pull the trigger to surround his star players with good players. But anyway, nonetheless, they call. Those 3 goalies are on the table. Which one are you most okay with giving up? So which one are you, less hesitant to give up? And what's the cost?
All right, so I'll just right off the bat here, I'm not giving up Montembeault at all. He's looking really good. But I'm most okay with giving up Jake Allen just because he's not fitting into the future. He's an older guy. I think he's still a very reliable goalie and will get you more back in terms of value compared to Primeau, who, again, he's getting older. Goalies take longer to develop. Sometimes they just break out of nowhere. But I think he's the project we should continue to invest in. He should get more games played. And if Allen's not there, maybe he shows up a little bit more. So I'm okay with giving up Allen. I think he's the number one guy that we should get rid of. Although it sounds like Ken Holland is not focusing on Jake Allen. But I think Jake Allen can return potentially, if we're taking in desperation into account, at best a second round pick, but maybe a third round pick and a roster player. But if we took on a cap dump, I think a first round pick is a possibility if we take on a big cap dump such as Jack Campbell.
I think it's funny you say that because I think a lot of people recently have been speculating, well, they'd be okay to part ways with Montembeault if the price was right. Now, the funny thing is that I almost find that the Edmonton Oilers are a terrible trade partner because the assets that they have are not worthy of Samuel Montembeault, in my opinion, right? You look up and down the guys that they have in their system and whatnot, whether it's Raphael Lavoie, whether it's Xavier Bourgault, or whether it's Dylan Holloway. Obviously, all those players, you could call them A/B level prospects, but are those guys that Ken Holland's going to want to part ways with when he's been so hesitant to begin with to even move off of, his first round pick? So I think it's interesting because if they came to you, okay, let's just give it as a hypothetical. If they came to you and said, we'll take Montembeault off your hands for Dylan Holloway, are you doing that? Like, I think that's a snap call, right?
No, I'm not doing that at all, to be honest.
You're not doing that?
No, I just think Holloway's at best a third line player. Like, I don't see a crazy potential with Dylan Holloway. I'd rather a guy like Bourgault, who has more of an offensive snap, a more offensive, he has that potential. But yet again, I don't even like any of those guys, including Broberg into there. So unless we're getting back a first round pick, I don't really want to get rid of Montembeault. Even though, okay, we might be overrating him, but I think he can develop into a good goalie.
Look, I think for me, Liam, I think personally, again, I think we have to keep in mind, and the reason I think Holloway is obviously a good hockey player. I think the problem is with that Edmonton Oilers team is that they're so top heavy that sometimes they just forget about the other guys they have on their team. And obviously Dylan Holloway has not been utilized properly. I think that's pretty visible. I think that's pretty obvious. I'm not in full disagreement with you. Obviously, I think that if they were to offer one of these higher level prospects on their team, whether it's Bourgault or whether it's Holloway, I think I would take it. I guess that's my personal opinion. Obviously, if that was the same offer for Jake Allen or Cayden Primeau, even Primeau, like I understand, obviously he's a project. It's a guy you want to develop. But is it like what I'm trying to ask myself, and we'll keep it quick here. The thing that's what I'm trying to ask myself is, are any of these goalies, in your opinion, the goalie of the future for this Canadiens team when they are, in the spot to make a run?
Personally, I think Montembeault could be. People are going to say I'm gassing this guy up, but I think he can be. But just going back quickly, where would you even see Holloway playing? Because he's a natural center.
They have him listed as a left wing, but I mean, maybe he's
okay. Maybe he's
a
left wing.
Look,
but where is he playing in our lineup? That's the thing.
I mean, he definitely wouldn't be a top 6 guy right now.
Exactly. So he'd be utilized the same as he is in Edmonton, whereas Montembeault is being utilized. I mean, again, not perfectly because he's playing every third game, but I think if one of our goalies are gone, he's taking over that starting role.
Okay, I'm looking at the Oilers lines, and they have Broberg as a forward, so obviously there's something going on here. But
I think it's because they play 11 and 7, so they just on daily faceoff they put him as a forward.
Well, they don't even have Holloway in their lineup right now. I don't know if he's injured or whatnot. But anyway, yeah, no, look, I don't think you're completely wrong. I think again, sometimes it's nice, like especially Montembeault, who's now in a contract year. Like, what does his contract look like? Like, what are the Montreal Canadiens willing to offer him? Is it a long-term deal? Is it is it like, I want to say, is it north of $4 million? Because in that case, I'm not. Well, we say that, but what? But why would Montembeault not try and go for term and for dollar amount? So then what's his worth?
Well, I believe he's an RFA, right? So
correct, but
I don't think he's deserving of 4. 4 is crazy for like, what's a comparable goalie that makes 4? Like Samsonov, he makes around that.
I don't know exactly a comparable, but
like, I just don't think he's obviously not that guy who's going to get an 8-year 8x6, but he's also not the goalie who's going to get a 1x1.
He is a UFA, by the way.
Oh, he's a UFA?
He's 27, so he's a UFA. He's right now has 1 year left at $1 million. Obviously,
he's going to get a jump, obviously.
Oh, I think I wouldn't be surprised, Liam, if you saw north of $3 million from Montembeault.
I'd say it's in that range.
If you can lock him up for south of $3 million, I think that's an easy, and especially with a little bit of term, I don't think there's a reason that you don't do that. So I think that's why maybe he's beneficial to keep, considering that he's probably going to get a contract that might not be so expensive, but you'll get enough term to the point where he'll be your transition goalie. And if he ends up outplaying his contract, then maybe he'll be your goalie of the future, quote unquote. So I guess we'll see. I guess, look, maybe you're right. I think that if Edmonton called and put, all their chips on the table and said, we'll give you, which they wouldn't, but if they said, we'll give you one of our, A-level prospects and a pick, a second-round pick, or we'll give you a first-round pick, I think it might be even hard to move off him. Now, I think that we have to still realize that we are in a rebuild, and assets that we could obtain are very, very valuable, but we have to realize at what cost.
Yeah, for sure. All right, let's do a little game here. Ed, you're the GM of the Edmonton Oilers. You get 3 calls. We're not going to discuss about who's going back the other way, but let's just assume it's similar players or picks in value. So you're Ken Holland. 3 goalies that you're being offered: Montembeault, Blackwood, and Varlamov. Which one are you taking?
I think I would have to check out their contracts. Are they all UFAs?
They're all expiring, I believe.
Okay, so if that's the case, if we're sure about that, if they're all expiring contracts, then the one that I'm taking on right now, and you're saying forget about what's going back the other way?
Yeah, just imagine it's very similar in value, because I think they would all get back similar.
I would honestly say Varlamov right now, kind of close with Montembeault, give or take. Like,
so Blackwood, you're putting Blackwood
I think is also, yeah, but I think they're all kind of like, again, we have to keep in mind that I think all those 3 goalies would give a boost to that team no matter what. If I had to choose one based off experience, based off of, past stats or whatever, I'm taking Varlamov in that case.
Okay.
I think that his game is still, I think he could still be a 1B in this league. Like, he's just behind Sorokin, which happens to be unfortunate for him.
Mm-hmm. But do you think they're
But
all better than Skinner? Do you think Montembeault is a better goalie than Skinner?
yes, I do.
Okay.
Pure goalie,
Okay.
yeah. I think they're all better than Skinner. If I had to choose one, it would probably be Varlamov and then a toss-up between Montembeault and Blackwood, giving maybe a little bit of an edge to Montembeault. But I would probably take Varlamov for what he's proven in this league. Because I think, correct me if I'm wrong, or like maybe you disagree, but I think that there's a world where Montembeault can like be bad. You know what I mean? Like,
For
I don't
sure.
think
For
he's
sure.
proven enough in this league to prove that he could be like stable enough for such a sensitive team in the Oilers, or
I,
fragile team, if you will.
I think there's such a big thing in the NHL where just people in general like to gas up goalies on bad teams because they make like 35 plus saves a game, but then they go to a good team and they're just not as good as they really were. Like, let's take for an example, this is the best example I always give. Darcy Kemper. He did win a Stanley did he win the Stanley Cup? Yeah, he won the Stanley Cup.
With Colorado,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay, fine. Maybe not the best example. But anyways,
No, but hold on though. Back up though. You're not wrong, because the truth is that on that team, he was facing a very limited amount of shots.
yeah, I mean, I think he was just very much overvalued because he was on Arizona making 30 plus saves a night. And it's the same story with Vejmelka, who all of a sudden Arizona's a bit better now, and somehow he's doing much worse than he was 2 seasons ago. But his stats are basically the same. It's just that he was facing a lot more shots. So I think that's just a big problem in the NHL. And it's the same case with Blackwood, I think.
And I think it's the exact same case with Montembeault, truthfully.
Yeah, that's a fair
I
point.
do.
It's a fair point.
I do, and I'm not saying that he deserves the same treatment necessarily, but I think that his stats are obviously going to be a little bit inflated when you're, like you said, you're facing 35 to 40 shots a game. I mean, that's not the case for every Montreal Canadiens game, but more times than not, he's going to be facing 30 plus shots. And obviously, yeah, you let in 3 goals, but 27 saves is not terrible.
No.
And then when you add on the 35 shots and 40 shots and you're letting in 3 goals, you're looking at 32 saves or 37 saves. Like, that's solid. So I think yeah, any bad team with a solid goalie that outplays their value is going to be a little bit overvalued, undeniably.
For sure.
But yeah.
All right, let's get
into
the next.
In that case, just in that case, you're which out of the 3 are you taking?
I'd probably say Varlamov as well, and then Montembeault, and then Blackwood. Even though Blackwood's looked really good, yeah, I guess that's the order I'd say.
Okay.
All right, so yeah, let's get into the next. Let's say 4 games. Oh, we'll look at the schedule here. Montreal is facing. Just pulling up the schedule. Go for it.
Tomorrow night against San Jose. Friday, November 24th in San Jose. So, right, we talked about that Cali trip. Then Saturday, back-to-back against the Kings. That'll be an interesting one, considering I guess that's Bergevin's, well, not his team, but he works for that team. So a little bit of a definitely there's got to be a little bit of something there. And
I'll
then
give a couple
Wednesday,
of kisses.
yeah. And then Wednesday, November 29th against the Columbus Blue Jackets, and another back-to-back Thursday, November 30th against the Florida Panthers. So 4 games, 2 in California, and then they return back to the East Coast where they take on the Columbus Blue Jackets in Columbus, and then Florida at home. Liam, record prediction for this week and your top performer of the week for the Canadiens.
Quickly, last week, our 4 games, we went 3-1. DraftKings sponsor. Don't bet on our based off our predictions, but we went 3-1. That's all I'm saying. So next 4 games: San Jose, LA, Columbus, Florida. We're taking the dub against San Jose. If we lose, I'm not a Habs fan anymore. And if Josh Anderson scores a hat trick, I'll buy a Josh Anderson jersey. LA.
You heard it here first, folks.
There's my take. LA Kings, we are most definitely taking the L there. LA's really good. That's all I'm going to say. And they're at home. So we're going to take the L there. So 1-1 to start the back-to-back. Is that a back-to-back? Yeah. Correct. Then we play the Columbus Blue Jackets, another duster of a team. They just smacked around Chicago, but I think we're going to win this game. Columbus stinks if we don't beat them. It's just, again, another sad day as a Habs fan. Then we're headed back to Montreal, playing the Panthers. Panthers have looked really good. So I'm going to say we're taking the L here. So 2-2, not a bad week, but a couple bad teams.
And your top performer?
Top performer. I mean, last week I said Cole Caufield would score 4 goals. I was very much off. But I did say Kovacevic would score, and he scored 2 goals. So
that gets you something.
Yeah, that should get me something. I want to say Slavkovsky, but I can't. I just can't physically say it. So I'm going to go Sean Monahan bounces back. He's going to have a 2-goal, 3-assist week or four game span.
Yeah, so over point per game there for Sean Monahan. That could be more than doable. I like that. I differ a little bit in my predictions, but San Jose, I think we take the win. I don't think that there's much. I need to go to more depth there. I think we lose to LA, unfortunately, but in their own barn, I think we're done for. And then I'm actually going to say that we lose to Columbus here. I think we're going to lose. I think it's a trap game. I think Columbus at home is probably going to find a way to outplay us on a Wednesday night in late November and steal a win that all Habs fans should have thought or would have thought should have been a game to win. Don't know if that made sense. And then Florida back at home for Montreal. I think they lose again. I think Florida is showing that they're a pretty dominant team in this Atlantic division, and they're going to finish top 3. So I think they go 1-3 this week, unfortunately, after having a 1-5 week last week. So from my perspective, you have 2 wins, I have 1, but nonetheless, we're only projecting them for 3 wins over these past 2 weeks. So 2 and 3 wins. So that's not great to begin with.
Playing a lot of former Habs this week. Playing a lot of former Habs. Return of Mike Hoffman. Well, not to the Bell Center, but Montreal versus Mike Hoffman. We got Dano on the Kings, and then former legend Nick Cousins on the Panthers.
There you go. For my top performer of the week, I'm going to go with. I think I want to go with Sammy Montembeault. I think all this chatter about him potentially getting moved, and now it's his time to show, hey, I like playing here, and I'm going to show you why I like to play here. And yeah, maybe this will boost my trade value, but I'm willing to take a relatively cheap contract to stay in Montreal and be the goalie here in my hometown. And I'm going to post a 920 save percentage this week, despite going, but he's going to win. Oh, you know what? This is tough though, because how many games is he going to play in this 4-week span?
Exactly.
But nonetheless, I'm not going to predict how many wins. I'm not going to predict how many wins, but I'm going to say he posts a 920 save percentage this week. So maybe that's 1 or 2 games.
I thought you were going to say Sammy Niku for a second. I was going to flip out. But the question we love to ask is Cayden Primeau getting a game? I'm saying yes.
I'm saying yes as well.
I think he gets San Jose tomorrow, to be honest. I think he's going to get it.
That would be a good get right game, especially when the Vegas game, he didn't look terrible. He looked amazing in the first period, and then it was just a massive collapse. I think the whole team collapsed, but
he still made 40 saves or whatever. He faced 40 something shots.
But like I said, when you're giving up 40 shots a game, there's 3 or 4 or 5 that are bound to get by you. So
yeah, especially when you're playing Jack Eichel and he just nips it on you shorthand on a power play. So
for sure. Anyway, guys, that's gonna wrap it up. We're at the 50-minute mark. We appreciate you guys for listening as per usual. And let us know if there's anything you want to hear in particular. Always throw that out there. Make sure to check out the socials down below, especially if you're watching on YouTube. But for those listening, habsculture.com to check out all our episodes, at Habs Culture on Instagram, Habs_culture on Twitter or X now, and Habs Culture, all one word, on TikTok. So guys, thank you so much for listening, and we'll catch you guys next week.
Thanks, guys.